let's talk a little bit about social mobility. Social mobility has two parts to it, an upside and a downside. Let me explain. The upside of social mobility are the stories that we all really love. We all love those stories of somebody who starts off really poor and then he works his way up the ladder, the so-called socioeconomic hierarchy, right? And becomes successful. That's, your Horatio Alger type stories. Those are the stories that we all really like. The other stories are the sort of Martin Scorsese version of it, which is people who start at the top and work their way to the bottom. And we don't like to really talk about that one, but those are usually cautionary tales that are given. And when you lock up social mobility, which is what a lot of people are experiencing right now, because they're like, man, why are we working? We're doing all this stuff. Everything is meaningless and it's pointless, and it's giving way to a lot of, like, I don't want to say nihilism, because it's not really nihilism. What it is, it's frustration. It's frustration because social mobility has been locked up, and when you lock that up, you stop the flow. Okay, so think of it like refluxing. In chemistry, if you're refluxing something from a flask and it's going up your reflux tube and then coming back down, right? That is actually normal and healthy in an economy. What's an economy? Just people. In other words, people start off on the bottom and then they work their way up. And then they go through, what my personal theory is that is what's called shelf life theory. Eventually you lose touch and you start to slide a little bit, and then you settle back down. Maybe not all the way back down, but you settle in somewhere, maybe in the middle or something like that. This is actually normal and healthy. It's sort of like the ebb and flow of any economy. It's the ups and downs. It's breathe in, breathe out. It's like, this is a very normal thing if you look at nature. So, it's the life and death cycle kind of thing. It's the circle of life, ashes to ashes, turn, you know what I mean? So when you freeze social mobility, which is what the attempt has been, you create huge frustration because there's a bunch of people on the bottom going, hold on, why are we not moving up? What happened? Where did this break down? Where did the system break down? It broke down because the people that made it to the top locked up the social mobility, and they did it with fiat currency. You knew it was coming, right? You knew that was what I was going to say. Because, see, think about it. Imagine if you're trying to play Monopoly with somebody where one of the players gets the privilege to just print an endless amount of money, no matter what, right? Like under any circumstances, they just get to conjure money. You're going to lose every time against that person, right? Because they have an infinite amount of money. There is no finite source there. There's nothing grounded there. There's nothing that pulls you back down to earth. No, they just keep printing. So you have all these people that have made their way to the top. Now, why is it that the system seems so hell-bent on keeping those people at the top? I can only give you speculation, but it probably has to do with an island and that guy that, that we can't talk about. We can't say his name apparently on the internet. Has to do with that guy. That, it's easier. They don't want to replace. It would be a lot of work to go back and get a bunch of blackmailed people again, right? It's much easier just to keep those people there because you already own them. Well, so you can't allow any more social mobility. You can't allow the hierarchy to shift. You can't allow any of those kinds of things. So this is why you're seeing your wealth inequality becoming like unbelievably vast now, to where the people that are doing all of the work are making none of the money. They're making none of the strides. They're getting nothing done in their life. They're not even paying their bills anymore. Now you have people who work full-time. They're full-time plus. They're not even able to pay their bills. They're rotating credit cards now. Like, this is the problem when you lock up your social mobility, because there's a bunch of people that are on the top that are supposed to be losing everything right now. A good example of this is, for those of you who don't remember 2008, the real estate market should have collapsed, like full-blown. That's what should have happened. But it didn't. They kept it propped up, because what would have happened is it would have taken down the entire banking system, which again should have also collapsed. Same thing now. All of this stuff should be collapsing. And you're like, oh my God, but that would be horrible and doom and gloom and blah, blah, blah. No, it actually would be very healthy for that to happen. That would be probably the most healthy thing that could happen to the country, The reason being is because then your small businesses, your truly competent people, move in, they buy up all those assets for nothing. And they make those assets actually profitable. Not fake profitable that we're seeing right now, but actually profitable. Does that make sense? See, right now, a lot of large companies don't really care about their profitability because they're just going to get bailed out. They're just going to, put more stock. They're going to issue more stock. And it's going to just keep. Why do you think that guys like Warren Buffett aren't buying anything? It's the same reason I'm not buying anything and haven't for quite some time. It's the same reason I'm not interested in investing in any of these things, because none of their numbers make any sense. There's no fundamentals now with any of these companies. None of them operate on fundamentals. They operate solely on largesse. That is not a workable system for any length of time. You can get away with it for a little while, but eventually the chickens are going to come home to roost. You can't do this kind of thing. So now they're going to keep it going for a long time, and they're going to. The plan is right now is to replace Americans with cheap foreign labor. That's the plan. This is not a new. By the way, this is not a new idea. This has been done a lot throughout all of history. So it's not a new idea. It's just a new twist on an old idea. And so the idea is replace Americans because they're expensive. And then, of course, criticize Americans for not working hard enough. Criticize Americans for not doing enough. Criticize Americans for not getting enough education. Because your 5 or 6 different degrees, that wasn't enough education. You need to go to super duper college. Like this is the kind of nonsense that's going on. This is why I openly tell people, if you're in college, you should probably quit immediately. Don't take on any more debt. Do not take on not one more penny of debt. Scholarship is one thing, but I mean, like, any more debt? No, you don't want to owe anything. It's why they're pretty much opening the floodgates for almost anybody to go to any of these universities now. If you can sign a loan form, they need you in debt. They need to have Americans constantly in debt because that's what gives the currency its value. The last thing that any government or bankers want Americans to do is start paying off debt. That is the last thing they want. Because if you start paying off debt, then that actually starts distorting the value of their currency. For example, just yesterday, I happened to see this. I'm not big on current events, but just yesterday, I see this, that the Messiah that everybody voted for, another $5 trillion in debt ceiling. It's like, dude, why not make it 10? Why not 25? Why not just give everybody a printing press and let them print their own dollars? Like, at a certain point, this kind of stuff becomes ridiculous. And there's no end to this, by the way. There's no end to this. As long as they can keep importing cheap labor from other countries, then the wages will never come up for Americans organically. They'll never allow the people on the top to start losing money, all the shareholders to start losing money, which they should be. The shareholders should be losing money. Shareholders, you're not a guarantee to return. Past performance is not indicative of future results. Investors can and do lose money. And the thing is that investors right now have been told that they'll never lose money. And you were told that the stock market is a savings account. That is not true. The stock market's not a savings account. It's a casino. And you are supposed to lose money occasionally. Any casino where you're always winning, there's something wrong. There's something very wrong with all of that, which means that there's a corresponding loser on the other side of that. Who's the corresponding loser to all of this? Well, that would be the American working class, who are being destroyed to prop up all these fake winnings, as opposed to, the gamblers losing their money, falling from grace, again, they're not going all the way down to zero, but I mean, they're going somewhere down the stack a little bit. And then the working class, again, buying up the assets and then actually doing stuff and making them profitable, running profitable businesses, as opposed to largesse type businesses. Is any of this making any sense? I hope so, because this is a very serious problem, and it's not going to go away anytime soon. Not from what I'm seeing. And the Messiah is not going to deport all those illegals and cut off all the H-1Bs. There's just no way he's going to do it. It would send labor rates way too high. It would be nice. I'd like to see it. As part of the American working class myself, I would love to see labor rates probably quintuple, which is what they probably should be. That is not a exaggeration. They probably should be going up 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times to keep up with the real inflation that they've all created.